Let's look at the second half of Mary's song, or Mary's Magnificat. This is Luke chapter 1, verse 51. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. So Mary is replying to Elizabeth. She is talking about God, and she's just blown away by his greatness, his power, his turning his face to her. And she's, seems to be very practiced at kind of expounding, almost like a psalm writer. If you read the book of Psalms, this feels like that. And so she's talking about God. He has shown strength with his arm. Now, this is an interesting thought. Like, what does she mean? Is she talking about something that happened just now? Is it something in the past? It says, he has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. So have you ever had an idea in your mind, you're like, this is going to work? She's saying, the God is actually at work inside people's minds, kind of scattering their thoughts. Interesting thought. He, still talking about God, has brought down the mighty from their thrones and exalted those of humble estate. So we have kind of a mental, like a confusion that goes on, and then here we have a political confusion, right? He has filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he has sent away empty. So Hebrew poetry often has rhymes of ideas, or contrasting ideas, and you'll see that a lot right here. So here we have, he has brought down the mighty, and he has exalted. So you have the mighty are brought down, and the humble ones are brought up. He has filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he has sent away empty. So you have come on in and eat, and you have go away. And here, she is clearly, calling herself one of those that is humble, that is poor, but God has turned his face to her and has shown her favor. And the truth is, he may have once upon a time, he may have, cast the mighty out of their thrones. She's probably looking back to the days of David, but at the moment, Caesar is on the throne, and he has set up a puppet king named Herod, who is brutal. He is brutal, and there are Roman armies and political factions, and she is not in a position of power. But God has turned his face to her. God has put a child in her womb and said that he will sit on the throne of his father David, and his kingdom will never end. And here's the proof. Go visit your relative Elizabeth, and she who was called barren, there's a child inside of her. And then she went, and boom, there actually is a child inside of Elizabeth. And so what if it's all true? What if it's all true? Sorry. He, still talking about God, has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy. So this is not just about Mary. This is about her whole people. She sees herself as part of a big story. And has spoken to our fathers, to Abraham, and to his offspring forever. So the song is just bursting out of Mary. She makes much of God. It's called Mary's Magnificat. She makes much of God. And what does it mean? What does it mean that this is her response? I think it means she believes the angel's message. She believes it's true. She believes that the impossible is going to happen, that nothing is too great for God to do. And she somehow, because of God's favor, she gets to be part of it. And I'll tell you, there's lots of things that feel impossible, lots of things that feel over the top. For example, like sometimes I think, how can there be a God that is personal and loving, and the kind of God that the Bible teaches about? Like, how can this be true when my eyes cannot see, when I'm emotionally on a roller coaster all the time? How can all that be true? That's one of the things that sometimes feels impossible. But then I get moments that are the evidence, or I'm invited to chase the evidence, kind of like Mary was, and she had to go on a journey. I'm on a journey as well, but then I see, I catch my breath in the morning when I see a sunrise, or I think, wait, how is it that I am held to this earth while it is flying through space on orbit around a flaming sun, and yet I take life for granted, like I call it an ordinary day. Like there's nothing ordinary about our life. And so she connects her life to a big story, to this family, to this promise that God had given to Abraham. And I think right here, this is a good clue. Like what should we do? Look at what God has done in the past. Look at the ways he has blessed you, the ways he's been faithful, the pieces of evidence that convinced you the last time that you went looking, the last time you felt like the promises were too big or they were impossible. Go and remember what God has done, the things you can't explain away, the ways he has been good to you that you did not deserve. And Mary remained with her about 3 months and returned home. So we get this kind of, for the end of Elizabeth's pregnancy, Mary is there. And at the very beginning of Mary's pregnancy, Mary is there, and they encourage one another. Now, why is she there? Why doesn't she go hang out, with her mom? Why doesn't she hang out in her town? We're just guessing. But, to suddenly show up pregnant and to have this wild, impossible story about how the Holy Spirit put the child inside of you and you weren't just sleeping around, that would be a tough sell. And so it's funny because it's part of what makes it believable to me, right? That she's reacting in her culture with doubt. She's reacting in ways that asks questions, the same kind of questions that I would ask. And then when presented with this evidence, she just is bursting with relief and praise for the God who is doing this impossible thing. Now, the book of Luke gives us some really interesting details that none of the other accounts do. And I think, like I mentioned before, one of my favorite details is that she sings a song. She has thought about every one of these details, and she's thought, what does it mean? And she's asking the same questions. What does it mean? What is going on? What should I do? She is trying to listen to the voice of the Lord, just like we are.